If you asked me 6 months ago what my marriage was like, I'd have said one word: solid. Not flashy, not dramatic, just right. I'm 40. Been in real estate since my mid-20s, on a small agency in Manhattan. Decent money, loyal clients, nothing to complain about. Lauren, my wife, is 35, works in marketing, fast-paced, creative stuff. She's sharp, poised, always put together. The kind of woman who makes you straighten your back without realizing it. We've been together almost 10 years, married for 7. No screaming matches, no jealousy games, no cold wars over dishes or text messages. Our life was smooth. We made each other laugh, took turns making dinner, watched the same dumb shows on Netflix, even shared one Spotify account and somehow never fought over it. People used to say we looked like we were still in the honeymoon phase. And maybe we were, because I never felt like I had to second guess her. Not once. If there were cracks, I didn't see them, because there weren't any. She was thoughtful, supportive, still kissed me before leaving for work, still asked how my day went like she genuinely cared. And me? I felt lucky, like I'd somehow landed a woman way out of my league and she hadn't noticed yet. So when she brought up the idea of going to Thailand, I didn't think twice. She said we needed a break, just the two of us. Somewhere warm, beautiful, quiet. She'd been watching travel vlogs, scrolling through photos of beaches and street food. "You need a reset," she said one night, sitting cross-legged on the couch, laptop in her lap, somewhere without reception, just us, no schedules. I joked that she was planning to kidnap me. She smiled and said, "Exactly." It was her idea, the whole thing, the destination, the dates, even the villa. I dragged my feet at first. I hate long flights, hate humidity even more, but in the end, I said yes. Because why not? We deserved it. At least, that's what I thought. Phuket felt like pressing pause on real life. The moment we stepped off the plane, it was like someone dimmed the lights on everything that wasn't us. The noise, the traffic, the meetings, the cold concrete rhythm of Manhattan, all gone. Just sun, palms, ocean, and that sweet, slow drawl of island time. We rented a private villa, tucked a little off the main road, not far from the beach, but far enough that roosters beat alarms every morning. It had charm. White walls, blue tile floors, tiny pool in the back, a few mismatched chairs that somehow made the place feel expensive. We also rented a car and a scooter, Lauren's idea. She said it'd be fun to explore, that the island's small enough to get lost without actually being lost. And that was kind of our motto for the trip: no plans, no schedules, no check-ins. We spent the first few days together almost non-stop. Mornings at the beach, afternoons exploring local spots, temples, waterfalls, food stalls where I couldn't pronounce a single thing but ate it anyway. She was radiant, not just in the vacation glow kind of way. I mean, she looked genuinely happy, like her shoulders dropped for the first time in months. We had dinners by candlelight, drinks under palm trees, massages at little places by the roadside that felt suspiciously like someone's spare room. She'd reach across the table, hold my hand for no reason, call me by my full name in that teasing voice she uses when she's tipsy and affectionate. I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be, with exactly who I was supposed to be with. Then came the solo run. It started around day 4. She said she wanted to go shopping. Something about handmade jewelry, custom sandals, local designers. Nothing weird. She knew I hated shopping, especially when it involves bargaining with half-naked tourists and dodging mopeds in alley markets. "Don't worry," she said with a grin, already pulling on a sundress. "I'll be back in a few hours. You don't need to suffer through this one." I kissed her on the cheek, wished her good luck, and plopped back into the pool with a beer. Easy choice. She came back late afternoon, glowing, laughing about how some vendor tried to sell her a knockoff Rolex for $100. Showed me a pair of sandals, a little dress she said was too small but cute anyway, and a necklace that honestly looked like something from a gumball machine. I didn't care. She looked happy. That's all that mattered. Next day, same routine. Shopping again. Another can't-miss street market she read about online. I raised an eyebrow. "Didn't you just buy enough stuff to open your own booth?" She laughed, kissed my forehead, and said, "One more time, I swear, then I'm all yours again." I waved her off. Because why not? Let her enjoy herself. She deserved it, and I genuinely didn't think anything of it. Not even a flicker of suspicion. I mean, she was still sleeping next to me, still laughing at my jokes, still sliding her hand into mine when we walked through the night market or sat down for drinks by the water. She wasn't distant. She wasn't cold. She wasn't hiding her phone or snapping at questions. If anything, she seemed more present, more relaxed, like the version of her I remembered from our early days. So when she said she wanted to go out again, this time with the car, not the scooter, I didn't blink. More shopping? I joked. Always, she said, grinning. And off she went. I stayed back, read a few chapters of a book I'd been dragging for months, took a nap, swam until my fingers wrinkled, ordered room service from a guy who barely spoke English but made the best pineapple fried rice I've ever had. And still, not a single red flag in my mind. Not one. She came back that night like nothing had changed. Hair a bit messy from the wind, skin warm from the sun, a tiny new bag in her hand, maybe one of those touristy woven purses you only ever use on vacation. We sat out by the pool, talked about the next day, maybe a boat trip, maybe just beach chairs and coconut smoothies. She curled up next to me like it was the most natural thing in the world. And in that moment, I thought, this trip was a great idea. She was right. I didn't know, couldn't know, that somewhere in the middle of all this calm, something else was unfolding. But right then, she was still my wife, and I was still the happiest guy on the island. It was one of those afternoons where everything feels just a little too quiet. Lauren had taken the car, off to yet another shopping trip or spa session or whatever it was that day. I'd already had my swim, read a few chapters of a book I wasn't really into, and scrolled through the same 3 apps on my phone like they were going to give me new answers. I got restless. Didn't feel like sitting still anymore. So I grabbed the scooter keys and helmet, left a quick note by the pool, out for a ride, back later, and took off. No plan, no destination. Just that kind of freedom that only exists on a tropical island when no one's asking anything from you. The air was thick and salty, wind tugging at my shirt as I zipped through narrow roads lined with palm trees and sunburnt tourists. Past a couple of beaches we'd already been to, then kept going. Karen Beach was the first stop. A little more crowded than I liked. Families, umbrellas, kids running into the surf. I parked for a minute, walked to the edge of the sand, took a breath, and decided to keep moving. Kata Beach was quieter. Less noise, more shade. Something about it felt slower, calmer. I found a spot to park near a side street and wandered down to the edge of the shore. There was a small cafe tucked just off the path, rustic, half open air, with bamboo chairs and faded blue cushions. Looked like the kind of place that forgot to advertise and didn't care. I sat down, ordered a coffee and a slice of mango cheesecake from a teenage waiter who barely spoke but smiled like he'd known me for years. And I swear for a moment, everything was perfect. Just the ocean breeze, the sound of soft chatter, the smell of fresh ground beans. That rare kind of stillness. I was halfway through my coffee when it happened. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught a familiar shape, someone walking along the beach, just beyond the low stone wall near the cafe. I turned, casually at first, and then I froze. It was Lauren, but she wasn't alone. There was a man with her tall, tanned, wearing a white linen shirt, unbuttoned halfway. They were walking close, real close. Her hand was in his, not on his arm, not brushing by accident. In his, fingers laced. They were smiling, not the kind of smile you give someone you just met on vacation. This was different, comfortable, familiar, intimate. Then she leaned into him just slightly the way she does with me when she wants to whisper something or laugh softly so only I can hear. Except it wasn't me. My stomach dropped. I didn't move, didn't breathe. It felt like my entire body had gone silent, like the volume on the world got turned down to 0. Who was he? I had no clue. Never seen him before. But something in the way they moved told me this wasn't new. They walked past the cafe, didn't even look in my direction. She was too busy laughing at something he'd said, too caught up in whatever world the two of them had created. And me? I reached for my phone, hands shaking just enough to make it hard to open the camera. I took a photo, then another, and one more just in case the first 2 were blurry. They kept walking, slowly disappearing down the beach. No rush, no guilt. Like they were exactly where they were supposed to be. I sat there for another minute, maybe more. Couldn't really tell. My coffee was still warm, but I couldn't taste it anymore. I didn't storm after them, didn't yell, didn't make a scene. Hell, I didn't even stand up. I just sat still, heart pounding like I'd run a marathon, while every nerve in my body screamed, "What the hell is happening?" Then I paid for my coffee, got back on the scooter, and rode straight back to the villa. No one saw me. She didn't know I'd been there, didn't know I'd seen. And I wasn't about to tell her. Not yet. Not until I understood what I was dealing with. Because in that moment, the one thing I knew with every cell in my body was that this wasn't random, not a chance encounter, not some innocent vacation flirt. This had history. This had planning. And I had just walked into the middle of something I didn't even know I was a part of. I got back to the villa maybe 40 minutes after leaving that cafe. Sun still high, pool still shimmering. The same silence, the same lazy rustle of wind through banana leaves. But something in me had shifted. I parked the scooter, walked through the garden gate, and stepped inside like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't just seen my wife holding hands with another man. Like I hadn't just snapped 3 shaky photos of a betrayal I couldn't yet explain. It took effort, real effort, to keep my hands from trembling as I opened the fridge, poured a glass of water, and sat down like it was just another afternoon. I stared at the tile floor for a long time, and then I heard the car pull up. Lauren walked in, all smiles, glowing, relaxed, shopping bags in hand. She kissed me on the cheek, asked how my day was, told me the market was insane and that she found the cutest little leather bag for her sister. I smiled, nodded, said something like, "Sounds like a good haul." I even helped her unpack. Every word I said felt like it came from someone else's mouth. Every smile felt like a mask. Inside, I was replaying the scene over and over. That hand in his, that laugh, that effortless closeness. I didn't confront her, didn't ask, because I didn't want to lie. Not yet. I wanted proof. After dinner, while she was in the shower, I stepped out onto the patio and pulled out my phone. I didn't call my best friend, didn't call my brother. I called someone I hadn't spoken to in almost a year, a guy named Shane. We'd met years back through a mutual client. He ran a small, quiet, private investigation agency out of Brooklyn. Worked with lawyers mostly. Cheating spouses, asset tracing, corporate leaks. Discreet, cold-blooded, sharp as a blade. I messaged him first, just a quick, "You still working?" He replied in under 10 minutes. Always. I told him I couldn't talk freely but needed help. He sent me a secure link. We switched to encrypted chat. I explained the situation in plain terms. No drama, no flourishes. Told him where we were, what I'd seen, what I needed. He replied, "Send the photos." I did. All 3. Even the blurry one where her face was half turned. He took a minute, then responded, "Got her. Send me her full name. I'll start digging." Then, "Do not confront her. Not here. Not now." I asked why. Because if she's smart and she sounds smart, she'll play the long game. You tip your hand too early, she'll bury whatever you could have found. Let her feel safe. Let her get comfortable. Then he added one last thing. Keep acting like nothing's wrong. Every word, every glance. Be the husband she thinks she's fooling. I stared at that message for a long time. It made sense, and it made me sick. I went back inside. She was curled up on the couch in one of my t-shirts, legs tucked under her, watching some Thai game show with the volume too low to understand. She looked up, smiled. "Hey, I was thinking maybe we could do the boat trip tomorrow. The one with the caves and lagoons?" I said, "Sure, sounds great." And just like that, I was back in the role. The next few days were some of the hardest I've ever lived. We swam, we drank, we posed for pictures. She held my hand, kissed me under beach umbrellas, posted stories with captions like, "Lucky to have this guy." Every time she looked at me, I smiled back. But under that smile, my brain was running constant calculations. Noticing when she'd step outside to take a call, tracking how long she was gone when she ran to the shops, watching how often she checked her phone, how she tilted the screen away just slightly. Shane kept checking in, asked for background work details, phone number, social accounts. I gave him everything. He said he was working on identifying the guy from the photo. Meanwhile, I kept pretending. I kept playing my part like an Oscar was on the line. Because now, I wasn't just a husband. I was a witness. A quiet one. Collecting evidence. Building my case. And Lauren? She had no idea the curtain had already lifted. We got back to New York a few days later. Cold slapped us the second we stepped out of the terminal. The kind of sharp, dry chill that cuts through whatever tan you brought home. Lauren pulled her scarf tighter, looked at me with that familiar smirk and said, "Still want to move to the beach?" I smiled, played along, the same way I had been for days now. Nothing in my face gave away what I knew. Nothing in my voice hinted that everything had changed. Jet lag hit her harder than usual. She slept most of the first day. And me? I didn't sleep at all. I lay there, staring at the ceiling while the city outside went on like nothing was wrong. The next morning, Shane messaged me. Short, precise, no drama. Got a name. He attached a screenshot, a cropped version of the photo I'd sent from Phuket, now enhanced, zoomed in, clean. The guy's face was clear. Alex Carrington, Shane wrote. 40, financial consultant, works in Midtown, divorced, no kids. And then the part that hit harder than I expected. Used to date your wife. I blinked. Read it again. Used to date your wife. I called Shane immediately. Didn't even care that it was 6 a.m. He picked up on the second ring. Tell me everything, I said. He was ready. Apparently, Lauren and Alex dated back in her early 20s. Serious. College era, kinda serious. They'd been together 3 years. Split up when he took a job in Chicago. Long distance didn't work. Or maybe he just didn't want it to. Either way, she'd never mentioned him. Not once in 10 years. According to Shane, their paths had crossed again recently, maybe 6 months ago. Professional overlap. Some client pitch or campaign marketing meets finance. Emails turn into meetings into drinks into whatever the hell I saw on that beach. The phrase Shane used was gradual reactivation. Said it like a guy reading a military file. She probably didn't plan for anything at first, he added. But he knew exactly what he was doing. He poked the old wound, and she let it bleed. I didn't say anything. My jaw was locked tight enough to ache. Then he said something that made my stomach turn. This wasn't a random affair. It was coordinated. I think she orchestrated the trip to keep it quiet. I asked what he meant. She picks the location, the dates. She sells it to you like a romantic getaway. No questions, no suspicions. Then she coordinates with him. He books separately. They meet under the radar. Everyone speaks English badly. No shared friends, no paper trail. I sat back in my chair, looked around my apartment like it didn't belong to me. She planned it. Every smile, every kiss, every casual, go ahead and stay by the pool, babe. I'll be back soon. I was a decoy, a piece of background furniture, the husband who hates shopping and won't follow her around the island. And he, Alex, he was the secret souvenir. It made too much sense. The timing, the confidence, the fact that she didn't even flinch when I mentioned staying in for the day. She knew I wouldn't interfere because she knew me. That's what hurt the most. Not just the cheating, but the fact that she'd studied me well enough to know exactly how to move around me, like a chess player clearing the board while I sat there admiring the view. Shane said he'd keep digging, try to pull phone records, maybe trace their communications further back. But I already knew enough. I knew who he was. I knew what they had. I knew this wasn't some drunk mistake in a bar. This was intentional, rehearsed. And I knew I wasn't losing my wife to a stranger. I was losing her to someone she'd once loved, someone she had history with, someone who still had a piece of her and decided to reclaim the rest. The worst part? I could still hear her in the kitchen, humming to herself, making coffee like nothing had happened, like I didn't already know everything, like I wasn't sitting there, staring at the ruins of a life I thought was untouchable. But I kept my face calm, kept my voice steady, because the game wasn't over. Not yet. The thing about betrayal, the kind that's planned, calculated, is that it doesn't look like a wrecking ball. It looks like routine. It looks like a smile over morning coffee, a soft kiss on the shoulder, a suggestion to take a trip together, just us. It looks like love. That's what made Lauren dangerous. She didn't cheat like someone who was reckless. She cheated like someone who studied the map first. Looking back, I could see at the outlines of the setup. The trip to Thailand wasn't spontaneous. It wasn't about reconnecting. It wasn't even really about me. It was a cover. Every part of it, from the villa to the scooter to the hand-picked beaches, far from where we usually stayed, was built around one thing: space. Space for her to move. Space for him to arrive. Space for me to be conveniently out of the picture while thinking I was still in the frame. Shane dug deeper and confirmed what I'd already suspected. Alex had been booked into a hotel less than 15 minutes from our villa, but in the opposite direction from all the shopping spots she claimed to be visiting. They hadn't bumped into each other. This wasn't a meet cute on a foreign beach. This had been on the calendar. Lauren made sure I wouldn't question it. She chose the location. She sold it to me like a dream. She even sweetened the pitch with phrases like, "You'll love how quiet it is, no pressure to do anything." And she was right. I didn't question a thing, because that was her strength, knowing me better than I knew myself. She played the part flawlessly. Affectionate, attentive, relaxed. She didn't pick fights, didn't disappear at odd hours, didn't suddenly start acting suspicious. She was smart, and she had to be because of the prenup. See, when we got married, I was already in a strong financial position. I wasn't a billionaire, but I was doing well-owned property, had investments, equity in a few projects, and I'd seen too many stories go sideways. So I brought up the contract. She didn't fight it. She even said, "Honestly, I'd do the same if I were in your shoes." It was airtight. If either of us cheated, and I mean provable infidelity, the guilty party walked away with nothing. No house, no alimony, no cut of the assets, just whatever they brought into the marriage. In Lauren's case, that wasn't much. She knew the rules. She'd agreed to them. So she built her plan with that clause burned into her brain. She didn't just want to cheat. She wanted to do it without leaving a trail. No texts, no receipts, no hotel names that overlapped with ours, no public arguments, no emotional distance I could point to in court. She wanted to have her secret and keep her security. And the most twisted part? She never stopped playing the wife. She still made me dinner some nights, still wore the perfume I liked, still leaned into me on the couch like nothing was wrong. She probably told herself it wasn't really cheating if I never found out, that it didn't count as betrayal if she came home afterward and acted like she still loved me. And maybe, in some twisted corner of her mind, she believed that. But I knew better. And Shane knew better. And the law? The law doesn't care how many times you kiss your husband goodnight if there's a photo of you holding hands with someone else on a beach in Phuket. That's what made this different. This wasn't some drunken mistake. This was a strategy, a way to feed the fantasy without losing the foundation. And I could see now how deep it went. Every shopping trip on the island? Pretext. Every time she told me to stay by the pool and enjoy your book? Misdirection. Every compliment, every touch, every look during that trip? Part of the performance. And I'll admit it, for a while, I questioned myself. Was I being paranoid? Was I reading too much into this? Maybe it was just a flirtation. Maybe it hadn't gone that far. But then Shane found something else. A set of photos not from Thailand, but from New York, 3 weeks before the trip. Lauren and Alex walking out of a building together. Not touching, not kissing, but standing close. Too close. And the timestamp? A weekday afternoon when she told me she was working late at the office. That's when it all clicked. Thailand wasn't where it started. It was just where it got comfortable. Because she thought she could manage both lives from paradise. She thought I'd never notice. And to her credit, for a while, I didn't. There's a moment right after the shock, right after the heartbreak where rage wants to take over. You imagine shouting, slamming doors, throwing things. You picture the confrontation, the tears, the unraveling. But I didn't do any of that. I didn't scream, didn't accuse, didn't even change my tone. Because rage is loud. But revenge is silent. I spent the next week doing exactly what I was supposed to do, at least on the surface. I kissed her goodbye in the morning, said, "Love you," on autopilot. Let her talk about work, about groceries, about the dog walker who always forgot to lock the gate. But beneath that calm, I was building something. The first thing I did was contact my lawyer, not the firm I usually worked with, too close to home. I reached out to a guy I knew through a client, old school, discreet, based in Jersey. I told him I needed a consultation, nothing formal. He agreed to meet at a quiet cafe in Hoboken, said he liked the view better than Midtown chaos. We sat down, ordered coffee, and I laid it out, the facts, not the feelings. Told him about the prenup, told him what Shane had found, told him what I had seen with my own eyes. He didn't flinch, just listen. Then he said the words I needed to hear. "You're in a strong position, but you have to be smart." That was the theme of the whole meeting. Stay calm, stay quiet, don't tip your hand. "You've got one shot to play this clean," he said. "You go off script now, you risk losing leverage." I nodded. I understood. He helped me draft a checklist, things I'd need to secure. Accounts, documents, business assets, anything that could become a target once the house of cards came down. I started moving money, not hiding it, just protecting it. Shifted funds from our joint, checking into my personal business account. Closed 2 credit cards she rarely used, ones that still had my name attached. Transferred ownership of a property I co-owned with a friend into a separate LLC. Legal, documented, airtight. I also changed passwords. Email, cloud storage, bank app. Enabled 2-factor authentication on everything. Set up alerts for any login attempts I didn't recognize. It wasn't paranoia. It was insurance. Because if she'd gone this far to protect her secret, there was no telling what she'd do when it came out. I checked the prenup again, line by line. Made sure every clause was still valid. It was ironclad. Our lawyers had both signed off on it. No way around it. Next, I started organizing my evidence. I made a secure backup folder separate from my phone, stored on an encrypted drive. Included every photo, every chat log with Shane. Even a voice note I'd made one night when she was out, where I just talked through the timeline, every moment I could remember, just to keep it fresh. I didn't trust my memory anymore, not after how easily she fooled me. Then I made another decision, a hard one. I reached out to a therapist, not because I was falling apart, but because I needed someone in my corner who wasn't part of the plan, someone I could talk to without strategy, without calculation. I booked the first session under a different name, paid cash. Told him the truth, not all the details, but enough. He asked me one question that stuck with me. Do you want to destroy her, or do you just want to be free? And I said, both. Because the truth was, I didn't want to hurt her out of spite. I just didn't want her walking away from this, thinking she'd won. I didn't want her getting the life she planned. While I rebuilt from rubble, she gambled. She bet on my ignorance. And now, she was going to lose. The hardest part wasn't the logistics. It was the pretending. Every morning, I had to remind myself not to look at her differently, not to flinch when she touched my hand, not to show my disgust when she laughed at something on her phone, probably him. I played my part because I had to, because real power doesn't show itself until the final move, and mine was coming soon. There's something about silence that scares people more than shouting. Rage they can handle, they expect it. But calm? That throws them off, because calm means control. And control means you're already 10 steps ahead. I waited 2 more days after the lawyer gave me the green light. 2 days of pretending everything was normal. 2 dinners. 2, how was your day? Conversations. 2 nights of laying beside her while she slept soundly, completely unaware that the life she knew was about to end. On the 3rd day, I made the appointment. Not with a lawyer, not with a therapist, with her. I told her we should go out, just the 2 of us. Nice restaurant. Something quiet, private. She smiled, said she was happy I was finally in the mood to reconnect. Funny how they never see it coming. We got dressed up. She wore that black dress I always liked, low-key, classy. I wore a navy blazer and carried a simple leather folder in my hand. She didn't even ask what it was. Why would she? The restaurant was a place we'd been to before, dim lighting, soft music, not too crowded. The kind of place where people mind their own business. Perfect. We sat down, ordered drinks. She started talking about work, about the annoying intern at her office, about a new marketing pitch she was leading next week. I listened, smiled, even laughed once, just to keep the rhythm. Then the drinks came, and before she could take her first sip, I slid the folder across the table. She blinked, looked at it like I'd just handed her a math test. What's this? I didn't answer, just nodded. Go ahead, open it. She opened it. Inside were 3 neatly stacked sections. First, the photos. Cotta Beach, her and Alex, hand in hand, laughing, pressed against each other like 2 people who forgot the world existed. Second, Shane's report. Names, timestamps, locations. Meetings in New York. Hotel receipts under an alias. Cross-reference data. It was clean, surgical, undeniable. Third, a copy of our prenup. The specific clause, highlighted in yellow. In the event of infidelity, as determined by photographic or testimonial evidence, the guilty party forfeits any and all claim to shared assets. She didn't flip past the 2nd page. Her face changed in stages. First, confusion. Then recognition. Then something I hadn't seen in her in years, fear. She looked up at me. Not angry, not defensive, just stunned. You were spying on me? No, I said, calm as ever. I was protecting myself. She swallowed. Her hands were shaking slightly, but she tried to hide it. I didn't. Don't, I cut in. You don't need to lie anymore. I already know everything. Silence stretched between us like barbed wire. She looked back down at the folder, like maybe the pages would disappear if she stared long enough. Then she whispered, "How long have you known?" "Since Phuket." Her lips parted. No sound came out. I took a sip of water. "I saw you, on the beach, with him." Her eyes welled up. Whether it was guilt, shame, or just panic, I couldn't tell. Didn't matter. "And you didn't say anything?" she asked. I shook my head. "No, I waited. I watched. I built the case." She started to say something, maybe an apology, maybe a plea, but I raised a hand. "It's done, Lauren. I've already filed the papers. This is just courtesy." She stared at me like I was a stranger, and maybe I was, because the man sitting across from her wasn't the husband she thought she had in her pocket. This wasn't the guy she thought she could fool with sweet smiles and vacation photos. This was someone she never expected, a man who knew, who waited, who planned, and who didn't blink when it was time to end it. I stood up, left enough cash on the table to cover the bill, picked up the folder and handed it back to her. "You'll want to review that with a lawyer." She didn't stop me, didn't chase after me, didn't scream in the parking lot. She just sat there, frozen. And as I walked out into the cold night, one thought hit me. Her face in that moment, that exact mixture of shock, realization, and regret, it was the most honest thing she'd ever shown me. It didn't take long for the fallout to begin. A day, maybe two. After that night in the restaurant, the folder, the photos, the signature on the paperwork, Lauren moved out. Technically, she didn't have to, but she knew what the contract said. And more importantly, she knew I wasn't bluffing. She went to stay with a friend, claimed it was temporary, left most of her things at the apartment, like maybe I'd call in a few days and say I'd changed my mind. But I didn't. The silence between us became permanent. And Alex? He disappeared even faster. Shane had warned me. Guys like him smooth on the surface, charming, confident, they vanish when consequences show up. Turns out, he didn't just vanish emotionally. He literally ghosted her, blocked her number, deleted her from social media, told mutual contacts to please respect his privacy. She didn't take it well. I know this because she tried to reach me, texted me late at night, called from numbers I didn't recognize, sent long emails, paragraphs that started with "I know I messed up" and ended with "Can we at least talk?" She even tried showing up at my office once, waited outside like a stranger, hoping I'd break character and invite her in. But I didn't, because by then, I was done playing the husband, done playing the fool, done playing anything. Her messages changed tone as the days passed. First came guilt, then came bargaining, then came desperation. She asked to meet just for closure, said she was confused, scared, lost, said Alex had nothing to do with us, said it was a mistake, a weakness, not a pattern. She cried. I know she cried. Her voice cracked on voicemails. There were pauses where she tried to catch her breath between words like forgive and try again. But you can't cry your way out of a contract. You can't unhold someone's hand on a beach. You can't unplan a secret affair. And by that point, I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even sad. I was clean. For the first time in months, maybe even years, I felt still. Like the chaos had passed, and I was standing in the aftermath, untouched. Her lawyer finally reached out quietly, without bluster, and confirmed what we already knew. The prenup held. No payout. No claims to the apartment. No shares in the business. No support. She walked away with exactly what she came into the marriage with. A few boxes, a few clothes, a few regrets, and her freedom, if you can call it that. Funny how quickly people vanish when there's no prize at the end. Alex was gone. I was gone. Even her own friends, the ones who'd taken her side at first, started to pull back once they realized there was no narrative left to defend. She wasn't the victim. She wasn't the romantic. She wasn't even the fool. She was just alone. I heard through Shane because I didn't ask that she moved into a smaller place. Studio, out in Queens. Some job changes. No more branded handbags. No more designer heels. She canceled her gym membership, sold her car. Reality came fast and harsh. And honestly, I didn't enjoy any of it. This wasn't about revenge. This was about balance. You take something apart with your hands, you don't get to be surprised when you're left with pieces. She made a choice. And like all choices, it came with a price. I remember the last thing she ever said to me. It was on a voicemail I never returned. She said, "I don't know how I got here." And I wanted to say, "You planned the trip. You booked the villa. You made the map. And now you're lost in it." But I didn't say anything because some things don't deserve closure. They just deserve to end. Time doesn't heal everything, but it clears the air. Like when a storm finally rolls through and all that sticky heat lifts and suddenly you can breathe again. That's how it felt. Months passed. Then more. The noise died down. Her calls stopped. The documents were signed, filed, done. My lawyer sent me a single-line email. "She's officially waived all claims. You're free." I read it once. Didn't even reply. What was there to say? I'd already said everything I needed to with silence, with calm, with facts. So I moved on. Not in the dramatic way people post about. Not with champagne or Instagram quote. Just quietly. I focused on work, expanded my portfolio, picked up a couple new properties out in Brooklyn, started going to the gym again, not out of grief, just out of habit. I rebuilt my routines from scratch. Got up earlier, cooked more, stopped checking 2 toothbrushes in the bathroom, stopped making coffee for 2. For a while, I didn't date, didn't want to. I wasn't bitter, just tired. Tired of games, of layers, of wondering what people meant when they said, fine. So I kept to myself, went out with friends, laughed more than I had in years. Not loud, not wild, just honest. And then one day, out of nowhere, someone knew. Her name's Emily. She's 25, works in publishing, reads more than she talks. And when she talks, she says things that make you pause, then laugh, then think again 5 minutes later. She's not a rebound. She's not a plan. She's just good company. Beautiful, yeah, but not in a way that asks for attention. More like the kind that walks into a room and makes you want to be better just standing near her. We started seeing each other. No promises. No forever talk. I was honest from day one. I told her I wasn't looking for marriage. Told her I'd already had my big life plan and now I was just interested in peace. She smiled. Said peace sounded pretty good. So we keep things simple. She comes over, we cook, we talk. Some nights she stays, some nights she doesn't. No games. No guilt. And for the first time in a long, long while, I don't feel like I'm waiting for the floor to drop out. I feel stable, whole. And funny enough, it was her idea. Emily, one night in February, said, "You ever think about going back to Thailand?" I raised an eyebrow. "You mean where my marriage died?" She laughed. "I meant the beaches, not the ghosts." I thought about it, about the sound of the ocean, the heat, the food, the version of me that existed before everything cracked open. And I said, yeah, maybe I do. So we booked the flight. Same island, different villa, same scooter rental spot, different story. This time, there were no lies, no second phones, no secret beach walks, just sunsets, cold beer, and a girl who asked me how I was feeling and waited for the real answer. I didn't bring up the past. Didn't tell her about the exact cafe where I saw Lauren. Didn't point out the street where I rode back in silence, heart sinking in my chest. Because that's not what this trip was about. This time, it was mine. My choice. My rules. No rings, no contracts, no performance. Just air and space. And the peace I'd earned the hard way. We left the island after 10 days. Tanned, tired, full of stories. She kissed me before the plane took off and said, "That was better than I expected." I smiled. "Yeah," I said, "me too." And I meant it.